My parents kicked me out the day I told them about my bookstore job, not because I did anything wrong, but because I refused to keep sacrificing my entire future to be their free childcare. What happened next turned into a family war that exposed secrets nobody expected, and now they're desperately begging me to come back. But here's the thing, I'm done being used. Let me take you back to where this whole mess started. 3 months after my 18th birthday, I finally landed my first real job. I'd been searching for months, filling out applications during whatever free time I could scrape together between taking care of my 3 younger siblings and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life. When Page Turner Books called to offer me a position as a part-time bookseller, I was absolutely thrilled. 20 hours a week, minimum wage, flexible scheduling around my high school classes, it was perfect. I remember practicing in the mirror how I'd break the news to Mum and Dad. I thought they'd be proud, maybe not excited, but at least supportive. I mean, this was a major milestone, right? My first job, my first step toward independence, toward building a future. I was so naive. That evening, I waited until after dinner when everyone was gathered in the living room. My little brother Dylan was sprawled on the carpet with his colouring books, and my 2 sisters, Sophie and Grace, were arguing over what to watch on TV. Dad was scrolling through his phone, and Mum was folding laundry on the couch. "Hey, Mom, Dad," I started, trying to sound casual despite the nervous energy bubbling in my chest. "I have some good news. I got a job at Page Turner Books downtown. I start next Monday." The room fell completely silent. Even my siblings stopped what they were doing to look at us. My parents exchanged a glance that I couldn't quite read, but it made my stomach twist. Then my dad spoke, his voice flat and cold. "Who's going to watch the kids?" Not congratulations, not we're proud of you, not even let's talk about how to make this work, just immediate concern about their free babysitting arrangement. I felt my face flush hot with embarrassment and anger. "Well," I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible, "who's going to pay for my college tuition and living expenses next year?" This wasn't just a random comeback. For the past 3 years, every time I'd mentioned college, my parents had the same response. "If you want higher education, you'll need to figure out how to afford it yourself. We have 3 other children to worry about." I genuinely expected this reminder to make them pause, to maybe see my perspective. Instead, my mother actually laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound that cut right through me. "Sarah, honey," she said with this patronizing tone that made my skin crawl. "You're 18 years old. You're practically an adult now. Taking care of family is what women do. You should be grateful for the experience. Some girls your age don't even know how to change a diaper or prepare a proper meal. We've given you valuable life skills." "Life skills," I repeated, incredulous. "Mum, I've been the primary caregiver for Dylan, Sophie and Grace since I was 14. I've sacrificed extracurriculars, social events, study time, everything, to be your free nanny. I'm not asking to abandon the family. I'm asking to work 20 hours a week so I can save money for my future." My father set down his phone and looked at me with this expression of complete disdain. "Your future?" he scoffed. "Sarah, be realistic. You think you're going to go off to some fancy university and become what? A doctor? A lawyer? You barely maintain a B average because you're always distracted." The dig about my grades stung because it was deliberately unfair. My GPA had dropped from a 3.8 to a 3.2 over the past 2 years, and it was entirely because I spent every afternoon and evening managing my siblings' homework, meals, activities, and bedtimes, while my parents worked late or went out with friends. I'd brought this up before, multiple times, but they always dismissed it. "I need this job," I said firmly, fighting to keep my voice from shaking. "I start Monday, and I'll figure out a schedule that still allows me to help with the kids on my days off." "No," my mother said simply, "you won't. If you choose this job over your family responsibilities, you choose not to live here anymore." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "What? You heard me," she said, returning to her laundry folding as if she hadn't just threatened to kick her daughter out. "We provide you with food, shelter, everything you need. The least you can do is contribute to this household. If you're not willing to do that, then you're free to support yourself completely." My dad nodded in agreement. "You want to be independent so badly, Sarah. Go be independent. See how far you get with your minimum wage bookstore job." I looked at my siblings. Dylan's eyes were wide and frightened. Sophie looked confused. Grace was only 6 and didn't fully understand what was happening, but she sensed the tension. These kids, who I loved more than anything, were being weaponized against me. "So that's it?" I asked, feeling tears threaten to spill over, but refusing to let them fall in front of my parents. "I get a job to try to build a future for myself, and you kick me out." "Don't be so dramatic," my mother sighed. "We're giving you a choice. Stay and help your family like you're supposed to, or leave and see how challenging the real world actually is. Your decision." Looking back now, I realize this moment was when something inside me fundamentally broke and then immediately rebuilt itself stronger. I'd spent so many years trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect older sister, desperately seeking approval that never came. And suddenly, standing in that living room with my parents treating me like an inconvenient employee rather than their child, I felt this clarity wash over me. I was done. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll pack my things." My mother's eyes widened slightly. I think she expected me to cave, to apologize and beg to stay. My father actually looked surprised too. But I turned and walked upstairs to my room before either of them could say anything else. As soon as I closed my bedroom door behind me, the reality of what just happened crashed into me like a physical force. My legs gave out, and I sank down onto my bed, pressing my hands over my mouth to muffle the sobs that I'd been holding back. I was 18, yes, but barely. I had $230 in my savings account from birthday money over the years. I owned a 12-year-old car that needed new tires and probably wouldn't survive another winter. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. I still had 2 months until commencement. And my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me and support me, had just told me to leave because I dared to want something for myself. For maybe 15 minutes, I let myself completely fall apart in that room where I'd spent my entire childhood. Then I wiped my eyes, blew my nose, and started making a plan. First, I needed somewhere to go. My immediate family obviously wasn't an option. My grandparents lived 6 hours away and were in their 80s. I couldn't burden them with this. But there was Maya, my best friend Jenna's older sister. Maya was 24, had her own apartment, and had always been kind to me. It was a long shot, but I pulled out my phone and sent her a text. "Hey Maya, I know this is random, but I'm in a really bad situation at home. Is there any chance I could crash at your place for a few days while I figure things out?" While I waited for a response, I started packing. I grabbed my largest backpack and a duffel bag from the closet and began stuffing them with clothes, focusing on practical items. Work clothes, jeans, sweatshirts. I packed my laptop, chargers, toiletries, medications. I grabbed the shoebox from under my bed that contained important documents: my birth certificate, social security card, immunization records. My phone buzzed. Maya had responded, "Of course. What's going on? Do you need me to come get you?" I typed back quickly. "My parents are kicking me out. Long story. I have my car. I can drive over. Is tonight okay?" "Absolutely. Come whenever. I'll be here." The relief that washed over me was almost overwhelming. At least I had somewhere to go, at least for a few days until I could figure out a longer-term solution. I continued packing, moving quickly now. I grabbed photos of my siblings from my dresser, my favorite books from the shelf, my journal. Just as I was zipping up the duffel bag, my bedroom door opened without a knock. Sophie stood there, her 9-year-old face crumpled with concern. "Sarah, are you really leaving?" My heart shattered. I knelt down and opened my arms, and she rushed into them, wrapping her skinny arms around my neck. "I have to, Soph," I whispered into her hair. "But it's not because of you, okay? I love you so much. I love all of you kids more than anything." "But why?" she asked, pulling back to look at me with those big brown eyes that looked so much like mine. "Mom said you're being selfish, but you're the nicest person I know. How can you be selfish?" I felt rage burn in my chest at my mother for putting that idea in my little sister's head, but I kept my voice gentle. Sometimes adults make decisions that other adults don't agree with. I'm not abandoning you, I promise. This is just complicated. Dylan appeared in the doorway then, and little Grace peeked around his legs. My brother's face was carefully blank, but I could see he was fighting not to cry. At 12, he thought he was too old for tears, but I knew him better than that. "Come here," I said softly, and all three of them piled into a group hug. We stayed like that for a long moment, and I tried to memorize it. The weight of them, the smell of Sophie's strawberry shampoo, the way Dylan was already almost as tall as me. "I need you to remember something," I told them quietly. "No matter what anyone says, I love you three more than anything in this world. That will never change. And when you're older, you'll understand why I had to do this." "Sarah!" My father's voice boomed from downstairs. "If you're leaving, then leave. Stop dragging it out." I pulled away from my siblings and grabbed my bags. As I headed for the door, Sophie clutched my hand. "Can we call you?" she whispered. "Any time," I promised, even though I had no idea if my parents would allow it. "I'll always answer." Walking down those stairs with my bags over my shoulder while my siblings watched from the upstairs landing was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My parents were waiting by the front door, arms crossed, expressions cold. "You're making a huge mistake," my mother said. "When you come crawling back, begging to help out again, don't expect us to welcome you with open arms." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something inside me disconnect completely. This woman, who was supposed to nurture and protect me, was kicking her barely adult daughter out into the world with almost no resources or support because I dared to want a part-time job. "I won't be coming back," I said evenly. "Not to live here anyway." My father opened the door. "Then go." As I walked to my car and loaded my bags into the trunk, I realized my parents hadn't even asked where I was going or if I'd be safe. They just watched from the doorway as I drove away, and in my rearview mirror, I saw them go back inside and close the door before I even reached the end of the street. The drive to Maya's apartment took 25 minutes. I cried for about half of it, then forced myself to stop and take deep breaths. I couldn't show up at Maya's place a complete mess. By the time I pulled into her apartment complex parking lot, I'd managed to compose myself somewhat. Maya was waiting at her door when I got to the third floor. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a tight hug without asking any questions. "Come on," she said gently, taking one of my bags. "Let's get you settled, and then you can tell me what happened if you want to." Her apartment was small but cozy, a one-bedroom with a living room that had clearly been set up as a second sleeping area. She'd already laid out blankets and a pillow on the couch for me. Once we were inside with the door closed, sitting on that couch with mugs of tea, I told her everything. The job offer, my parents' reaction, the ultimatum, the things they said. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression growing more and more horrified. "Sarah," she said when I finished, "what your parents did is not okay, like not even a little bit okay. You know that, right?" I nodded, though part of me still felt guilty. "They made me feel like I was being selfish and ungrateful." "You're not," Maya said firmly. "You're 18 years old. You should be focused on finishing school and preparing for your future, not serving as a free full-time nanny. What your parents did is called parentification, and it's actually a form of abuse." The word abuse made me flinch. I'd never thought of it that way. Sure, my parents were demanding and unfair, but abuse seemed like such a strong term. Maya must have seen my reaction because she softened her tone. "Look, I'm not trying to upset you more. I'm just saying that what they did was wrong, and you have every right to be angry and hurt. You're allowed to want things for yourself. That doesn't make you selfish." We talked for another hour, and then Maya showed me where everything was in the apartment: bathroom, kitchen, how the TV remote worked. She had to work early the next morning, but told me to make myself at home, eat whatever I wanted, and rest. That night, lying on Maya's couch in the dark, I pulled out my phone and looked at the messages I'd missed while driving and talking. There were 3 from Sophie, asking if I was okay and telling me she missed me already. There were 2 from Dylan, shorter, just, "Are you safe?" and "This sucks." Nothing from my parents. I responded to my siblings, assuring them I was fine and safe, and then I opened my notes app and started writing. I wrote down everything that had happened, every detail I could remember, because some part of me knew I'd need a record of this. By the time I finished, it was nearly 2 a.m., and I'd written over 2,000 words. As I finally closed my eyes to try to sleep, I felt this strange mixture of emotions. Grief over losing my family in this way, fear about my uncertain future. But underneath it all, there was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. For the first time in years, I didn't have to wake up at 6 a.m. to get my siblings ready for school. I didn't have to skip my own homework to help with theirs. I didn't have to miss out on being a teenager because my parents decided their children were my responsibility. It felt like I could finally breathe. The next morning, I woke up disoriented, forgetting for a few seconds where I was. Then it all came rushing back, and I felt my chest tighten with anxiety. I checked my phone, 9:47 a.m. Maya had already left for work, but she'd left a note on the coffee table. "Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. We'll talk more tonight. You're safe here, I sat up slowly, my body aching from the emotional exhaustion of the previous night. The apartment was quiet in a way that felt both peaceful and lonely. I'd grown so accustomed to constant noise and chaos, kids yelling, TV blaring, my parents arguing, that this silence felt almost eerie. I made myself toast and coffee, moving carefully around Maya's kitchen like a guest, which I supposed I was. Then I sat at her small dining table and opened my laptop to face reality. I needed a plan. First priority, finish high school. I had 2 months left before graduation. I couldn't let my parents' dysfunction derail that. Second priority, my job at Page Turner Books. I started Monday, which was in 5 days. I needed to make sure I had reliable transportation, appropriate clothes, and could get there on time. Third priority, figure out a more permanent living situation. Maya was being incredibly generous, but I couldn't impose on her couch indefinitely. Fourth priority, money. I needed to save aggressively for when I eventually moved out on my own. I was deep into researching emancipated minor status and housing options for young adults when my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Sarah, hi, it's Mrs. Richardson, Jenna's mom. Jenna's mom, my best friend's mom. This couldn't be good." "Hi, Mrs. Richardson," I said cautiously. "Maya told me what happened. I'm so sorry, honey. Listen, I wanted to let you know that if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. You're practically family to us." The kindness in her voice made tears spring to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed to say. "That means a lot. I also wanted to ask if you'd talked to your family. Have your parents reached out at all?" "No," I admitted. "Just my siblings." There was a pause. "I see. Well, I think you should know that your mother called me this morning." My stomach dropped. "She did?" "Yes. She wanted to know if you were staying with us. I told her I hadn't seen you, which was technically true since you're with Maya. But Sarah, she didn't sound worried about your well-being. She sounded angry. She said you'd run away and stolen money from them." "What? I didn't steal anything." "I figured as much," Mrs. Richardson said gently. "I'm just giving you a heads up that she's calling around to family and friends, and she's not telling people the truth about what happened." After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone, fury building in my chest. My mother was not only kicking me out, but also trying to turn people against me by lying about what happened. This was beyond unfair. It was vindictive. I thought about just letting it go, being the bigger person, staying quiet. But then I thought about my siblings growing up in that house, potentially facing the same treatment I did. I thought about other relatives believing my parents' lies and judging me without knowing the truth. And I made a decision. I pulled up my messages and started a new text to Aunt Patricia, my mother's younger sister who was legendary in our family for being the biggest gossip. If you wanted information to spread through the entire family within 24 hours, you told Aunt Patricia. New video content, how I escaped being my family's free nanny. I spent the next hour crafting a detailed message to Aunt Patricia. I didn't exaggerate or embellish, I didn't need to. The truth was damning enough. I included specific examples of how my parents had used me as free childcare for 4 years, the exact words they said when I told them about my job, and the fact that they kicked me out without even asking if I had somewhere safe to go. The message ended up being over 2,000 words long. I read it 3 times, making sure every fact was accurate before I hit send. Then I turned off my phone. I knew what was coming. Once Aunt Patricia got that message, it would spread through the family like wildfire. My phone would explode with notifications. There would be drama, confrontation, possibly even more people taking my parents' side. But I was too exhausted and hurt to deal with it immediately. Instead, I spent the rest of the day organizing my belongings, doing research on financial aid for college, and watching mindless TV shows to keep my brain occupied. When Maya got home from work around 6 p.m., she found me curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket like a burrito. "Rough day?" she asked sympathetically. I told her about my mum calling Mrs. Richardson and lying about me. I told her about the message I'd sent to Aunt Patricia. To my surprise, Maya didn't look concerned. She actually smiled. "Good for you," she said firmly. "Your parents have been getting away with treating you terribly because nobody knew the full story. Now they'll know. They deserve to face consequences for their actions." "But what if everyone thinks I'm just being a dramatic teenager?" I asked, voicing my biggest fear. Maya shook her head. "Sarah, you're one of the most level-headed people I know. Anyone who actually knows you will believe you, and the people who don't, they're not worth worrying about." We ordered Chinese food for dinner, and Maya told me about her day at work to distract me from the anxiety bubbling in my stomach. Around 8 p.m., I finally worked up the courage to turn my phone back on. The screen immediately lit up with notification after notification, texts, missed calls, voicemails, messages on social media. It was overwhelming. I took a deep breath and started scrolling through them. Aunt Patricia had forwarded my entire message to the family group chat, just as I'd expected. The responses were mixed. Uncle Robert: "I always knew something was off about how much time Sarah spent with those kids. This is terrible." Grandma Susan: "I'm calling your mother right now. This is absolutely unacceptable." Cousin Michael: "Honestly, this sounds like typical teenage drama. Parents set boundaries and kids overreact." Aunt Jennifer: "Michael, did you even read the message? Her parents kicked her out for getting a job. That's not setting boundaries, that's abandonment." Uncle David: "Where is Sarah staying? Is she safe? Someone needs to make sure she's okay." Cousin Ashley: "I can't believe Uncle Tom and Aunt Linda would do this. Sarah was always so good with those kids." The messages went on and on. Some people were firmly on my side, some thought I was exaggerating, and a few seemed to think both me and my parents were in the wrong somehow. But what struck me most was that people were finally talking about it. The secret was out. There were also several direct messages to me. Aunt Jennifer: "Sarah, sweetheart, are you okay? Do you need anything? Where are you staying?" Uncle David: "Your aunt and I would like to help if we can. Please call us when you get a chance." Grandma Susan: "I love you very much and I'm so sorry this happened. Call me." And then there were the messages from my parents. My dad: "You've humiliated this entire family. Don't expect any support from us ever again." My mom: "I can't believe you would betray us like this. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us. You're no longer welcome in this house." Reading those messages hurt more than I expected. Some part of me had still been hoping they'd realize how badly they'd messed up and apologize. Instead, they were doubling down, making me the villain in their story. There was one more message that caught my attention, from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Sarah, this is Coach Martinez from your school. Mrs. Richardson reached out to me about your situation. I want you to know that we're here to support you. Please come see me when you're back at school." I had to close my eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the mixture of kindness and cruelty, support and judgment, all coming at me through my phone screen. "You okay?" Maya asked gently. "I think so," I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. "It's just a lot." The next day was Saturday. Maya had plans with friends in the afternoon, but told me I was welcome to join them or stay at the apartment, whatever I preferred. I decided to stay. I wasn't ready to be social yet. Around noon, while I was doing some schoolwork, my phone rang. It was Grandma Susan. "Hi, Grandma," I answered, my voice shaky. "Oh, sweetie," she said, and I could hear she was crying. "I'm so sorry. I should have known something was wrong. I should have paid more attention." "It's not your fault," I told her, tears streaming down my own face now. "I spoke with your parents last night," she continued. "I told them exactly what I thought of how they've treated you. Your grandfather and I would like you to come stay with us." I was stunned. "Really? Really? You're our granddaughter, Sarah. You should be focusing on school and your future, not worrying about where you're going to sleep or how you're going to eat. We have plenty of room and we'd love to have you." "But you're 6 hours away," I said, thinking practically. "I have school here and I just got this job." "Then stay until you graduate," she suggested. "But after that, come live with us for the summer at least. We can help you figure out college and get you on your feet properly." The relief I felt was enormous. A plan. A real, actual plan for my future that didn't involve couch surfing or scrambling to survive. "Thank you, Grandma. That would be amazing." We talked for another hour. She told me she'd also spoken with several other family members and that there was a lot of support for me. Uncle David and Aunt Jennifer had even offered to help financially if I needed it. The family was rallying around me in a way I never expected. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in days. I still had challenges ahead, finishing school, starting my job, navigating the complicated relationship with my siblings. But I wasn't alone. I had people in my corner. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Sarah Chen?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "Hi, Sarah. My name is Karen Wilson. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. We received a report about your living situation." My heart started pounding. "Okay. I want to assure you that you're not in trouble," she said quickly. "But we do need to verify that you're safe and have adequate supervision since you're still technically a minor. Can you tell me where you're currently staying?" I explained about Maya and her apartment, about my grandparents' offer, about the plan to finish school and then move. Ms. Wilson asked a lot of questions about Maya's apartment, about whether I had food and money, about my school situation. "It sounds like you've landed in a good temporary situation," she finally said. "But Sarah, I want you to know that what your parents did, kicking you out for getting a job, that's not legal. You're 18, so you're close to the age where you'd be independent anyway, but we take these situations seriously." "What does that mean?" I asked nervously. "It means we'll be opening a case and conducting an investigation. We'll need to speak with your parents, your siblings, and some of your teachers. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know what's happening. You've done nothing wrong." After that call, I felt completely drained. I'd thought the hard part was over. I'd escaped the house, I had somewhere to stay, I had family support. But now there was going to be an official investigation, which meant more attention, more drama, more of my private life being scrutinized by strangers. That evening, Maya made her famous spaghetti carbonara, and we watched comedy specials to try to lighten the mood. Jenna came over too, armed with face masks and nail polish and all the supplies for an impromptu spa night. "I can't believe your parents," Jenna said as she painted my toenails bright blue. "Like, who does that? Who kicks out their kid for getting a job?" "People who see their children as free labor instead of actual people," Maya said darkly. "Have you talked to your siblings?" Jenna asked. I nodded. "Sophie and Dylan keep texting me. I think they're confused about what's happening. My parents are probably telling them some version of events that makes me look like the bad guy. Will you get to see them?" Jenna asked. "I don't know. My parents made it pretty clear I'm not welcome at the house anymore. The thought of not seeing my siblings regularly made my chest ache. They'd been such a huge part of my daily life for so long. Dylan, Sophie, and Grace. I'd watched them grow up, been there for their first days of school, helped them with their problems, dried their tears. And now I was just gone from their lives. We'll figure something out, Maya promised. Maybe supervised visits or something. You're their sister. They have a right to see you. Monday morning arrived, and with it, my first day at Page Turner Books. I was a nervous wreck. I'd barely slept the night before, anxiety about the job mixing with worry about how everything else in my life was falling apart. Maya loaned me a nice cardigan to wear over my plain black t-shirt, and I paired it with my best jeans. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. You've got this, I told my reflection. It's just a bookstore. You love books. This is literally your dream job. Don't mess it up. I arrived at Page Turner Books 20 minutes early. The store was in a charming old building downtown, with huge windows and the kind of aesthetic that made it perfect for Instagram posts. The manager, Tom Rodriguez, was a man in his late 40s with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Sarah, welcome, welcome," he said warmly. "Ready for your first day?" The morning was spent in training, learning the register system, understanding how the inventory was organized, memorizing store policies. It was a lot of information to absorb, but I focused intently, determined to be good at this job. I needed it, both financially and psychologically. This was my first real step toward independence. My co-worker Jessica, a college student who'd been working there for 2 years, showed me the ropes with patience and humor. She was the kind of person who made you feel instantly comfortable, cracking jokes about difficult customers and sharing stories about her own first-day disasters. "You're doing great," she assured me when I messed up a return and had to call Tom over to fix it. On my first day, I accidentally charged someone $400 for a paperback because I rang it up wrong. You're way ahead of where I was. By the end of my 4-hour shift, I was exhausted but pleased. I'd survived. More than that, I'd actually enjoyed it. There was something satisfying about helping customers find the perfect book, about being surrounded by stories, about doing work that felt meaningful even if it was minimum wage retail. When I got back to Maya's apartment, I found her sitting at the dining table with a serious expression and her laptop open. "We need to talk about something," she said. My stomach dropped. Was she kicking me out? Had I overstayed my welcome already? "Okay," I said nervously, setting down my bag. "So I did some research," Maya began, "about your situation, and I found something interesting. Since you're 18, you're technically an adult, which means your parents can't actually force you to do anything. But that also means they're not obligated to support you financially." "Right," I said slowly, not sure where this was going. "But," she continued, "there's this thing called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, FAFSA. And normally, even if you're 18, it requires your parents' financial information because you're still considered dependent on them for college purposes. Unless what? Unless you can prove special circumstances, which being kicked out of your home definitely qualifies as. I spoke with a friend who works in financial aid at Metropolitan University, and she said you should document everything that's happened and apply for what's called a dependency override." I sat down heavily. What does that mean exactly? It means you could potentially qualify for more financial aid because you don't have parental support. But you'd need documentation, statements from people who can verify what happened, maybe that CPS report, letters from counselors or teachers. It's not a guarantee, but it's worth trying. The idea of going through all of that, of laying out my family dysfunction for strangers to judge, made me feel sick. But the alternative, giving up on college entirely, was worse. "Okay," I said finally, "let's do it. What do I need to do first?" That week became a blur of activity. I went to school during the day, where I met with Coach Martinez and my guidance counselor to explain the situation. Both of them were shocked and immediately offered to write letters on my behalf. Coach Martinez even connected me with the school's social worker, Ms. Thompson, who helped me understand my rights as an 18-year-old in my situation. After school, I went to work at the bookstore, getting more comfortable with the job each day. The routine was grounding. There was something comforting about the predictability of it, the clear expectations, the simple transaction of helping someone find a book. In the evenings, I did homework at Maya's apartment and worked on college applications. Metropolitan University had been my dream school, but I was also applying to several others as backups. Each application required essays, and I found myself writing about resilience, about family, about finding strength in difficult situations. The story I told in those essays was honest, but carefully crafted. I didn't want to come across as bitter or as a victim. I wanted admissions officers to see me as someone who had faced challenges and chosen to grow from them. My phone continued to blow up with family drama. The group chat had devolved into full-scale war, with different relatives taking different sides. Some of my extended family had completely cut contact with my parents over how they'd treated me. Others thought I was being melodramatic and should just apologize and go home. What hurt most were the messages from my siblings. Sophie sent me videos of Grace crying because she missed me. Dylan texted, "Mum and Dad hired a babysitter, but she's mean and yells at us. Why can't you just come back?" I wanted so badly to explain to them that I couldn't come back, that returning would mean giving up everything I'd been working toward, that our parents had created this situation, not me. But they were too young to fully understand. All they knew was that I'd left and they missed me. By Thursday of that first week, I was running on caffeine and determination. I'd barely slept, working late into the night on college essays and FAFSA forms. Maya was worried about me burning out, but I couldn't stop. Every completed application, every form submitted, felt like another step away from the life my parents had tried to trap me in. Friday afternoon, I had my first meeting with the CPS social worker, Miss Wilson. We met at a coffee shop near the school, and she went through a detailed questionnaire about my living situation, my relationship with my parents, my siblings' well-being. "I want to be clear about something," she said when we finished. "Our primary concern is always the safety and well-being of minors. You're 18, so legally an adult, but your siblings are still our responsibility. Based on what you've told me, I don't see evidence that they're being abused or neglected, even if your parents' treatment of you was inappropriate." "So nothing will happen?" I asked, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment. "I didn't say that," Ms. Wilson replied. "We'll be monitoring the situation and conducting home visits. Your parents have been put on notice that we're aware of how they treated you, and that we'll be watching how they treat their other children. Sometimes that's enough to change behavior." That evening, Aunt Jennifer called. "I heard about the CPS investigation," she said. "Your mother is furious. She's telling everyone you're trying to ruin the family." "I didn't call CPS," I protested. "Someone else must have reported it." "I know, honey. I believe you. But I wanted to warn you that she's talking about taking legal action, something about slander." I felt cold fear wash over me. Can she do that? "Doubtful. You told the truth, and truth is a defense against slander. But she might try to intimidate you. Don't let her." After that call, I sat on Maya's couch and just cried. I was so tired. Tired of the drama, tired of defending myself, tired of feeling like I had to constantly prove that I wasn't the villain in this story. Maya came home from work to find me like that, red-eyed and exhausted on her couch. "Okay, that's it," she said firmly. "We're taking a mental health day tomorrow. No college applications, no family drama, no work, just relaxation." "I have a shift tomorrow," I protested weakly. "Call in sick. Tom will understand. Sarah, you're going to burn yourself out if you keep going like this." The next day, true to her word, Maya unplugged my phone and laptop, and we spent the entire day doing absolutely nothing productive. We slept in late, made pancakes for lunch, binge-watched an entire season of a sitcom, and ordered pizza for dinner. It was exactly what I needed. Sunday evening, recharged and ready to face the world again, I turned my phone back on. Among the usual chaos of family messages, there was one that stood out. It was from Mr. Henderson, the owner of Page Turner Books and Tom's boss. "Hi, Sarah. Tom mentioned you've been going through a difficult time. I wanted to let you know that we're here to support you. If you ever need to talk or need any kind of help, don't hesitate to reach out. You're part of our team now." That message, simple as it was, made me tear up. These people barely knew me, and yet they were offering more support than my own parents had. The second week was better. I fell into a rhythm that felt almost sustainable. School in the morning, work 3 afternoons a week, homework and applications in the evening. Maya's apartment had truly become a sanctuary, a place where I could just be myself without constantly being on guard or being needed for something. Jessica from work and I became actual friends. She was a sophomore at the local community college, studying business, and she had her own complicated family story. Her parents had divorced when she was 15, and she'd spent years navigating 2 different households with 2 different sets of rules. She understood, in a way that many people couldn't, what it felt like to have your family implode. "The thing nobody tells you," she said one day during our break, "is that sometimes cutting toxic people out of your life, even if they're family, is the healthiest thing you can do. People act like family is everything, but family is only valuable when it's functional." On Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from Coach Martinez asking me to come to his office before practice. When I got there, I found him sitting with Principal Andrews and Ms. Thompson, the social worker. "Am I in trouble?" I asked nervously. "Not at all," Principal Andrews assured me. "We wanted to talk to you about graduation." My heart sank. "Am I not going to be able to graduate?" "Of course you are," Coach Martinez said. "Your grades are fine and you're on track to complete all your requirements. But we wanted to make sure you have everything you need for the ceremony: cap and gown, tickets, someone to attend with you." I hadn't even thought about graduation logistics. "I don't know if I can afford the cap and gown," I admitted quietly. "Already taken care of," Principal Andrews said. "An anonymous donor has covered the cost, and you'll have 6 tickets instead of the usual 4, in case you want to invite your grandparents and the friends who've been helping you." I was speechless. Someone had done this for me, had thought about my needs and quietly taken care of them. Later, I suspected it was Maya or Mrs. Richardson, but neither of them ever confirmed it. That evening, I had a video call scheduled with my grandparents. They wanted to see how I was doing and talk more about the summer plans. Grandma Susan appeared on screen with her usual warm smile, and I immediately felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. Grandpa Henry appeared next to her, waving at the camera. "How's our girl?" Grandma asked. "Surviving," I said with a weak smile. "It's been a rough couple of weeks, but I'm managing." "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Grandpa said. "Your grandmother showed me your college essay. It's beautiful." We talked for over an hour. They asked about school, about work, about Maya's apartment. They carefully didn't mention my parents, for which I was grateful. As the call was ending, Grandma brought up something I hadn't expected. "We'd like to help you financially," she said. "Not a lot, we're on a fixed income, but we've been setting aside money each month. We have about $800 that we'd like to give you for your graduation." "Grandma, no," I protested. "I can't take your money. You need it for For what?" Grandpa interrupted gently. "Sarah, you're our granddaughter. We've been saving this money specifically to help you with college. Please let us do this." I wiped away tears. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come visit us this summer," Grandma replied. "Stay with us, work on your college plans, and let us take care of you for a change." After the call ended, I sat staring at my laptop screen, overwhelmed by gratitude and grief all tangled together. Why couldn't my parents be like this? Why couldn't they see me as someone to nurture and support instead of someone to use? The next day at school, I ran into Marcus Williams, a guy from my AP English class. We'd worked together on a group project earlier in the year, but hadn't talked much beyond that. "Hey, Sarah," he said, falling into step beside me in the hallway. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," I said cautiously. "I heard about what happened with your parents. Everyone's talking about it." He held up his hand quickly when he saw my expression. I'm not trying to be nosy. I just wanted to say I get it. My parents kicked me out last year when I came out as gay. I ended up couch surfing with friends for a while. I'm so sorry, I said, meaning it. That's horrible. It was, he agreed. But it also ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to figure out who I was without them defining me, and I found out who my real friends were. How did you manage, like practically? I asked. Marcus told me about the LGBTQ youth centre downtown that had helped him navigate resources, about how he'd gotten a part-time job at a restaurant, about how he'd applied for scholarships, specifically for LGBTQ students who'd faced discrimination. There are resources out there, he said. You just have to know where to look and not be too proud to ask for help. We exchanged numbers, and Marcus sent me a link to several organisations that helped young people in situations like mine. That conversation gave me hope. If Marcus could get through his situation and come out stronger, maybe I could too. That Friday, I had my second shift at the bookstore since everything had started. Tom pulled me aside during my break. You're doing really well, he said. Jessica tells me customers have been asking for you specifically. That's impressive for someone who's only been here 2 weeks. Thank you, I said, genuinely pleased. I also wanted to let you know, Tom continued, that we have an opening for additional hours if you're interested. One of our part-time people is moving in a few weeks. It would be about 30 hours a week total. I know you're still in school, but I thought I'd offer. More hours meant more money, which meant more savings for college and eventually getting my own place. But it also meant less time for homework and applications. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. Just let me know by the end of the month. That night, Maya and I sat down to do a budget. We mapped out my current income from working 20 hours a week at minimum wage, subtracted estimates for gas, phone bill, and my share of groceries. With the additional hours Tom was offering, I could save significantly more. But you need to make sure you're not sacrificing your education for this job, Maya warned. You're so close to graduation and college acceptance. Don't let work interfere with that. I know, I said. I'll be careful. Sunday was my 18th birthday, or rather it had been 3 months ago. But I'd been so caught up in survival mode that I'd almost forgotten about it. Maya, however, had not forgotten. I woke up Sunday morning to the smell of bacon and found Maya in the kitchen making a full birthday breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, the works. She'd even bought a small cake and candles. I know your actual birthday was a while ago, she said, but I figured you deserved to celebrate properly. Later that day, Jenna came over with a present, a beautiful journal with Sarah's story embossed on the cover in gold lettering. For all those college essays and future writing, she explained, and so you have a place to process everything that's happening. Mrs. Richardson stopped by with a gift card to Target so I could buy supplies for college. Even Tom from the bookstore sent a text with a gift card to the local coffee shop. That evening, as I blew out the candles on my small cake, I made a wish. Not for my parents to change or apologize, not for the family drama to go away. I'd learned those were futile wishes. Instead, I wished for strength to keep building the life I wanted, regardless of the obstacles. As April turned into May, I threw myself into scholarship applications with renewed determination. Mrs. Richardson had given me a list of over 30 scholarships, specifically for students who'd overcome adversity, first-generation college students, or those with financial need. Some required essays, some required letters of recommendation, some required documentation of my financial situation, which Maya helped me gather. I applied to every single one I was eligible for, staying up late into the night perfecting my applications. My life became a carefully orchestrated dance of school, work, applications, and exhaustion. Some days I felt like I was thriving. Other days I felt like I was barely surviving. But I kept moving forward because stopping meant giving my parents the satisfaction of watching me fail. Ms. Thompson, the school social worker, helped me apply for what she called emergency financial aid from a local non-profit that helped students in crisis. A week later, I received a check for $500 with a note that said, For your future. We believe in you. I actually cried when I opened that envelope. $500 might not seem like much to some people, but to me it meant security. It meant I could handle an unexpected car repair or buy textbooks for college. It meant I had a small buffer between me and disaster. Around this time, the family drama reached a new peak. My parents had apparently decided to fight back against what they saw as my character assassination. My father made a long post on Facebook claiming I was an ungrateful child who'd run away from home and was spreading lies to get attention. The post was something else. According to my dad's version of events, I'd left home voluntarily because I didn't want to help with my siblings anymore. I'd stolen money from them, a complete fabrication. And I was now trying to turn the entire family against them out of spite. The comments section became a battleground. Some people believed my father's story. Others pointed out inconsistencies in his narrative. Aunt Patricia, bless her, commented with the entire message I'd sent her, saying, "Here's what actually happened, straight from Sarah herself." I tried to stay out of it, but it was impossible not to look. Seeing my private pain being debated by extended family members and my parents' friends felt violating. Some comments were supportive, but others were cruel. One comment in particular stung. "Kids these days are so entitled. In my generation, we helped our families without complaining. Sarah needs to grow up and stop playing the victim." I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to explain that there's a difference between helping your family and being used as free labor. But Maya advised against it. "Don't engage," she said firmly. "You've told your truth. People who matter know what really happened. The rest doesn't matter." That week, I had a meeting with my guidance counselor, Mr. Patterson, to discuss my college prospects. I'd applied to 6 schools: Metropolitan University, my dream school, 3 state schools, and 2 private colleges that offered good financial aid. "Your grades have actually improved since all this started," Mr. Patterson noted, looking at my transcript. "That's impressive given everything you're dealing with." "I have more time to study now," I said simply. It was true. Without spending 4 hours a day managing my siblings, my grades had jumped from a 3.2 to a 3.6. "I think you have a strong chance at Metropolitan," he said. "Your essay was compelling, your test scores are solid, and the letters of recommendation from your teachers were excellent. Plus, with the dependency override documentation, you should qualify for significant financial aid." That Friday, I came home from work to find Maya sitting at the dining table with a strange expression on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately, anxiety spiking. "Nothing's wrong," she said slowly. "But I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how you're going to take it." I sat down, bracing for bad news. "Your mum called me today," Maya continued. "She said the new babysitter they hired quit after 2 weeks. Apparently watching 3 kids under 12 is too much for most people. Who knew?" Despite the anxiety, I almost laughed at the sarcasm in Maya's voice. "She wants you to come back," Maya said. "Not to live there, but to babysit regularly. She's offering to pay you." "How much?" I asked, curious despite myself. $10 an hour 3 times a week. I did the math quickly. For the amount of childcare I used to provide, easily 40 hours a week, that would be about $400 weekly. But they were only offering to pay me for maybe 12 hours. "What did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her I'd pass along the message," Maya said. "But Sarah, you need to make this decision based on what's best for you, not based on guilt about your siblings." I thought about it for a long time. Part of me missed my siblings desperately and would love an excuse to see them regularly. But another part of me recognized this for what it was. My parents trying to manipulate me into providing labor again, just with a nominal payment this time to make it seem less exploitative. "I'm going to say no," I decided. "If they want me to see my siblings, they can arrange actual visits where I'm there as their sister, not their employee." Maya nodded approvingly. "I think that's wise." I texted my mother directly. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in being hired as your babysitter. If you'd like to arrange visits where I can spend time with Dylan, Sophie, and Grace as their sister, I'd be happy to discuss that. She responded within minutes. This is exactly why we kicked you out. You're selfish and only think about yourself. I showed the message to Maya, who rolled her eyes. Classic manipulation tactic. Don't let her get to you. But it did get to me. No matter how much I tried to tell myself that I was making the right choices, my parents' words still had power. That voice in my head that said I was selfish, that I was abandoning my family, that I should just give in and go back. It was hard to silence. That night, I wrote in the journal Jenna had given me. I wrote about the guilt, the doubt, the exhaustion of constantly having to justify my choices. But I also wrote about the progress I'd made. I had a job. I had a place to live. I had people who supported me. I was on track to graduate and go to college. These were all things that wouldn't have been possible if I'd stayed in that house, sacrificing myself for my parents' convenience. The next week, something unexpected happened. I got an email from Metropolitan University with the subject line, Presidential Scholarship Finalist. I stared at the email for a full minute before opening it, afraid it might be a mistake. The Presidential Scholarship was Metropolitan's most prestigious award. It covered full tuition, room, and board for 4 years. There were only 10 recipients selected annually from thousands of applicants. I'd applied on a whim, not really thinking I had a chance. According to the email, I'd been selected as one of 50 finalists. The next step was an in-person interview at the university in 2 weeks. If I made it through that, I'd be one of the 10 recipients. Maya! I screamed, running into the living room where she was watching TV. I'm a finalist for the Presidential Scholarship. She jumped up and hugged me, both of us jumping up and down like little kids. This is huge, Sarah. This could change everything. The scholarship interview was scheduled for May 15th, 2 weeks away. That gave me 2 weeks to prepare, to practice potential interview questions, to research the scholarship's history and values. Mr. Patterson was thrilled when I told him. He immediately set up mock interviews with various teachers to help me practice. Coach Martinez worked with me on presentation skills. Ms. Thompson helped me prepare my story in a way that was honest but not self-pitying. Remember, she coached, they want to see resilience, not victimhood. Focus on what you've learned and how you've grown, not just on what happened to you. I took extra shifts at the bookstore to save money for a professional outfit for the interview. Jessica helped me pick out a navy blue blazer and matching slacks at a consignment store. Maya loaned me a nice watch and helped me practice my hair and makeup until I looked polished and professional. The night before the interview, I could barely sleep. This scholarship represented more than just financial aid. It represented validation that I'd made the right choice, that I was worthy of investment, that my story mattered. I arrived at Metropolitan University's campus an hour early, too anxious to wait at Maya's apartment any longer. The campus was beautiful, old brick buildings covered in ivy, huge oak trees, students walking around with backpacks and coffee cups. This could be my home for the next 4 years. The interview was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:30, I checked in at the admissions office. There were 4 other students there for interviews, all looking just as nervous as I felt. When my name was called, I followed an assistant to a conference room where 5 people sat behind a long table, the scholarship committee. They looked intimidating. 2 professors, the dean of students, the director of financial aid, and an alumnus representative. Have a seat, Sarah, the dean of students said with a kind smile. We're just going to have a conversation, okay? Nothing to be nervous about. The interview lasted 45 minutes. They asked about my academic interests, psychology with a focus on family dynamics. They asked about my leadership experience, limited, but I'd helped organize a canned food drive at school. They asked about my challenges and how I'd overcome them. This was the hard part. I had to talk about my parents, about being kicked out, about becoming essentially homeless at 18. But I tried to frame it the way Ms. Thompson had coached me, not as a sob story, but as a catalyst for growth. My family situation forced me to become independent earlier than most people, I explained. It taught me resilience, resourcefulness, and the importance of asking for help when you need it. It also showed me who my real support system was and taught me not to take anything for granted. They asked what I plan to study and why. I want to become a family therapist, I said, and this answer came straight from my heart. I've seen firsthand how dysfunctional family dynamics can damage children. I've also seen how powerful it can be when someone, a teacher, a friend's parent, a social worker, intervenes with compassion and support. I want to be that person for other families. The interview ended with them thanking me for my time and telling me they'd notify all finalists of their decision within a week. I walked out of that conference room feeling like I'd given it my all. Whatever happened next was out of my control. The week after the scholarship interview was torture. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, thinking it might be the decision. But the days passed with no news. To distract myself, I threw myself into preparing for final exams. I was so close to graduating, just 3 more weeks. My GPA had climbed to a 3.65, and I was determined to finish strong. At work, Tom offered me a promotion of sorts. One of the full-time employees was moving to a different city, and he wanted to know if I'd be interested in increasing my hours over the summer. I can offer you 35 hours a week, he said. It would include some supervisory responsibilities and a small raise. You'd move up to $12 an hour. But I know you're planning to go to college in the fall, so I wanted to check if you'd even be available. $12 an hour, 35 hours a week. That was over $400 weekly before taxes. For a summer job, that was incredible. I'm definitely interested, I told him. Even if I get into Metropolitan, I'll need money for books, supplies, and personal expenses. Can I confirm after graduation once I know my college situation for sure? Absolutely, Tom agreed. That evening, I got an unexpected video call from Dylan. It was late, almost 10 p.m., and he was using our dad's old tablet. Dylan, is everything okay? I asked, concerned. He looked upset, his eyes red like he'd been crying. Can you come back, please? My heart clenched. Bud, you know I can't do that. But it's so bad here, he said, his voice cracking. Mum and Dad fight all the time now. They're always stressed about money because they have to pay for babysitters. Sophie cries herself to sleep every night because she misses you. Grace keeps asking when you're coming home. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. I miss you guys too, so much. Then come back, Dylan pleaded. I know Mum and Dad were mean to you, but maybe if you apologize. Dylan, no, I interrupted gently but firmly. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to apologize for wanting to have a job and build a future. But you left us, he said, and the accusation in his voice cut deep. You chose that job over us. That's not fair, I said, trying to stay calm. Mum and Dad chose to kick me out rather than let me have a job. I didn't want to leave you. I was forced to leave. That's not what Mum says. She says you wanted to leave, that you didn't care about us anymore. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Of course my mother was spinning it that way. Of course she was making me the villain to my own siblings. Dylan, I love you so much. I love Sophie and Grace. Nothing will ever change that. But I can't come back to a house where I'm treated like free labor instead of a daughter. We talked for a few more minutes before he had to go. After the call ended, I broke down crying. Maya found me on the bathroom floor, sobbing into a towel so I wouldn't disturb her. They turned them against me, I managed to say between sobs. My own siblings think I abandoned them. Maya sat down on the bathroom floor next to me and put her arm around my shoulders. They're kids, Sarah. They don't understand the full situation. When they're older, they'll get it. What if they don't? What if they hate me forever? They won't, Maya said with certainty. The truth has a way of coming out eventually. Right now, they only hear your parents' version, but someday they'll be old enough to form their own opinions. The next day at school, I felt like I was walking through fog. I couldn't concentrate in any of my classes. At lunch, I sat with Marcus and Jenna, but I barely touched my food. You okay? Jenna asked, concerned. I told them about Dylan's call, about how my siblings thought I'd chosen to leave them. That's parental alienation, Marcus said darkly. My parents did the same thing to me with my younger sister, told her I was choosing a sinful lifestyle over family. It took years, but she eventually reached out when she was old enough to understand. Your siblings will come around. What if they don't? I asked. Then that's on your parents, not you, Marcus said firmly. You can't sacrifice your entire future to maintain a relationship with siblings who are being manipulated against you. That's not fair to you. Logically, I knew he was right, but emotionally, it didn't make the guilt any easier to bear. That afternoon, I had a shift at the bookstore. About halfway through, while I was restocking the fiction section, a woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Chen?" I turned confused. "Yes?" "I'm Angela Martinez, Principal Andrews' sister. He told me about your situation. I'm a lawyer specializing in family law." My confusion deepened. "I don't understand. Why are you here?" "Because I want to offer you free legal consultation," she said simply. "Your case, a parent kicking out their minor child, is something I have expertise in. I think you may have legal recourse against your parents." I stood there holding a stack of books, stunned. Legal recourse? They were still obligated to support you as your parent until you either graduated high school or turned 19, depending on your state, Angela explained. By kicking you out, they violated that obligation. You could potentially sue them for damages, back child support, reimbursement for expenses you've incurred, emotional distress. The idea had never occurred to me. I don't want to sue my parents. I just want to move on with my life. Angela nodded understandingly. That's valid, but I wanted you to know it's an option. Even if you don't pursue legal action, knowing your rights can help you negotiate better terms for seeing your siblings. She handed me a business card. Think about it. If you change your mind, or even if you just want to talk through your options, call me, no charge. After she left, I tucked the card in my pocket and tried to process this new information. I could sue my parents? The idea felt both empowering and terrifying. That evening, I called Grandma Susan to tell her about the scholarship interview and to get her advice about the legal situation. "Oh, sweetheart, suing your parents sounds exhausting," she sighed. "Not that you'd be wrong to do it, but legal battles take a toll. Are you sure that's the path you want to go down?" "I don't think so," I admitted. "I just want to graduate, go to college and build my life. But it felt good to know I have options, you know." "I understand," Grandma said. "And speaking of college, your grandfather and I are planning to drive down for your graduation. We wouldn't miss it for anything." The thought of my grandparents being there made my eyes well up. "Thank you, Grandma. That means everything to me." We talked for a while longer, and she updated me on the family drama. Apparently, several relatives had stopped speaking to my parents entirely over how they'd treated me. Uncle David and Aunt Jennifer had even made a formal complaint to the rest of the family, saying they should cut off my parents unless they apologized and made amends. "There's a real divide now," Grandma explained. "Some people think your parents made a mistake but deserve forgiveness. Others think what they did was unforgivable. It's causing a lot of tension." "I never meant to tear the family apart," I said quietly. "You didn't tear anything apart," Grandma replied firmly. "Your parents did that when they chose to treat you so poorly. All you did was tell the truth." On May 22nd, 1 week after the scholarship interview and 3 weeks before graduation, I got the email I'd been waiting for. I was at work when my phone buzzed with the notification. I was in the middle of helping a customer, so I couldn't check it immediately. But I saw the sender, Metropolitan University Scholarship Committee. My hands actually shook as I finished ringing up the customer's purchase. As soon as they left, I ducked into the back room and opened the email. "Dear Sarah Chen, congratulations! We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Metropolitan University Presidential Scholarship." I had to read it 3 times before it really sank in. I'd won. Full tuition, room and board for 4 years. Over $200,000 in total value. I could go to my dream school without worrying about crushing debt. I actually screamed. Tom came running into the back room, thinking something was wrong, and I showed him my phone screen. He actually picked me up in a bear hug and spun me around. "This is incredible," he said. "I'm so proud of you." Jessica heard the commotion and came over, and soon the whole staff knew. Tom actually let me leave work early so I could go celebrate, insisting he'd pay me for the full shift anyway. I drove straight to Maya's apartment, practically running up the stairs. She was home, working on her laptop, and looked up in surprise when I burst through the door. "I got it," I yelled. "I got the presidential scholarship." She jumped up and we both started screaming and jumping around like maniacs. When we finally calmed down enough to speak, she said, "I never doubted you for a second. This is going to change your life, Sarah." That evening was a blur of phone calls. I called my grandparents, who cried happy tears. I called Jenna and Mrs. Richardson. I called Coach Martinez and Mr. Patterson. Everyone was thrilled for me. "You deserve this so much," Mr. Patterson said. "After everything you've been through to achieve something like this, it's remarkable." There was one call I debated making: my parents. Part of me wanted to tell them, wanted them to know that I'd achieved something significant despite them kicking me out. But another part of me knew they'd probably find a way to diminish it or make it about themselves. In the end, I decided not to call them directly. If they found out through the family grapevine, fine, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of a personal announcement. The next day at school, word had somehow spread. Several teachers congratulated me in the hallways. During English class, Mrs. Rodriguez asked me to stay after and told me how proud she was. Even kids I barely knew were coming up to congratulate me. At lunch, Marcus, Jenna, and a few other friends surprised me with a cake they'd somehow managed to sneak into the cafeteria. "To Sarah," Marcus announced, raising a juice box, "proof that trauma doesn't define your future. You do." That weekend, Maya took me shopping to celebrate. "You need a whole new wardrobe for college," she declared. "We're getting you set up properly." We went to consignment stores and clearance racks, stretching our budget as far as possible. By the end of the day, I had new clothes, bedding for my dorm room, school supplies, and even a mini fridge that Maya insisted on buying for me. "You've given me so much already," I protested. "And I'm happy to give more," she replied simply. "You're like a little sister to me, Sarah. Let me do this." On Monday, exactly 1 week after getting the scholarship news, I got an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a familiar voice came through. "Sarah, it's Aunt Patricia." I tensed immediately, unsure what this call would bring. Aunt Patricia had been the one to spread my original message, which had started the whole family war. "Hi, Aunt Patricia," I said cautiously. "I heard about your scholarship," she said. "I wanted to tell you how incredibly proud I am of you." "Thank you," I replied, still wary. "I also wanted to let you know that I spoke with your mother," she continued. "I told her that she needed to congratulate you and apologize for how she's treated you. She's refusing to do either, but I wanted you to know that I tried." Something in my chest loosened a bit. At least someone in the family had tried to advocate for me to my parents directly. "I appreciate that," I said sincerely. "Your mother is being stubborn and foolish," Aunt Patricia said bluntly. "She's losing her daughter over pride, and she's too blind to see it. But I want you to know that regardless of what she does, you have support in this family. Many of us are so impressed by how you've handled this situation." After we hung up, I felt oddly emotional. I'd been bracing myself for my parents to find some way to ruin even this triumph, but instead, I was surrounded by people celebrating me. That same week, I had my final meeting with the CPS social worker, Ms. Wilson. "I wanted to give you an update on the investigation," she said. "We've completed our assessment of your family situation. And?" I asked nervously. "Your siblings appear to be adequately cared for," she said. "The home is clean, they're attending school regularly, they seem healthy. Your parents have hired appropriate childcare, so from a legal standpoint, there's no grounds for intervention." I felt relief mixed with something else, maybe disappointment. Part of me had hoped CPS would do something to hold my parents accountable. Ms. Wilson must have seen my expression because she continued gently. I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, but Sarah, the system exists to protect children from abuse and neglect. What your parents did to you was wrong, but your siblings aren't currently in danger. I understand, I said, though understanding didn't make it hurt less. However, Miss Wilson added, we've documented everything in our records. If there are any future issues with how your parents treat your siblings, this file will be here. Sometimes knowing they're being watched is enough to change behavior. As I left that meeting, I thought about my siblings at home, being cared for by paid babysitters instead of their sister. I hoped they were okay. I hoped my parents were treating them better than they'd treated me. And I hoped that someday, when they were old enough to understand, they'd reach out and we could rebuild our relationship. The last 3 weeks before graduation passed in a blur of final exams, end-of-year projects, and senior events. I maintained my 3.65 GPA and finished in the top 15% of my class. Not valedictorian level, but impressive given everything I'd been through. The night before graduation, I couldn't sleep. I lay on Maya's couch staring at the ceiling, thinking about how much had changed in just a few months. 4 months ago, I was a trapped, exhausted teenager with no future beyond being my parents' unpaid help. Now I was about to graduate high school with a full scholarship to my dream university. Maya found me awake at 2 a.m. and sat down next to me. Nervous? She asked. More like, processing, I said. This time last year, I couldn't have imagined any of this. I thought I'd be stuck in that house forever, watching my siblings grow up while I missed out on my own life. But you're not, Maya said simply. You got out, you fought for yourself, and look where you are now. I couldn't have done it without you, I said, tears welling up. You saved me, Maya. You gave me a safe place to land when I had nowhere else to go. She pulled me into a hug. You would have found a way regardless. You're one of the strongest people I know. I just provided a couch and some encouragement. Graduation day dawned sunny and warm. I spent the morning getting ready, putting on the white dress Maya had helped me pick out to wear under my cap and gown. I did my hair and makeup carefully, wanting to look my best for this milestone. At noon, Grandma Susan and Grandpa Henry arrived. Seeing them pull up outside Maya's apartment made me burst into happy tears. They'd driven 6 hours to be here for me, and their presence meant everything. Look at you, Grandma said, pulling me into a tight hug. Our beautiful granddaughter, all grown up and graduating. Grandpa slipped an envelope into my hand. Inside was a card with $800 in cash and a note. For your new beginning. We love you and are so proud. Grandma and Grandpa. You've already given me so much, I protested. Nonsense, Grandpa said gruffly. This is what grandparents are supposed to do, support their grandchildren's dreams. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. We arrived at the school stadium at 2:30, and I had to go line up with my graduating class while my family found seats in the bleachers. Standing in line in my green cap and gown, surrounded by my classmates, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. I'd made it. Against all odds, despite my parents' attempts to hold me back, I'd crossed the finish line. Marcus found me in line and gave me a high five. We did it, he said with a grin. We really did, I agreed. The ceremony itself was long, over 400 students walking across the stage one by one. But when my name was called Sarah Chen, the cheers from the stands were loud enough that I could pick out specific voices. Maya's whistle, Grandma's "That's our girl," Jenna's screaming. As I walked across that stage and shook Principal Andrews' hand while receiving my diploma, I looked out at the crowd and saw my people cheering for me. And that's when I realized I hadn't lost my family when my parents kicked me out. I'd simply discovered who my real family was. After the ceremony, during the chaos of graduates finding their families, I was engulfed in hugs. Grandma was crying happy tears. Grandpa kept taking photos. Maya was grinning from ear to ear. Jenna and Mrs. Richardson had shown up too, along with Tom from the bookstore and several of my teachers. I'm so proud of you, honey, Mrs. Richardson said, hugging me tight. You've shown such strength through all of this. We took what felt like 100 photos. Me with my diploma, me with my grandparents, me with Maya, me with all my friends in our caps and gowns. At one point, I looked around at all these people who'd shown up to celebrate me and felt overwhelmingly grateful. Then I saw them, my parents, standing at the edge of the crowd with my 3 siblings. My heart nearly stopped. Sophie saw me at the same moment and broke free from my mother's hand, running toward me. "Sarah!" I dropped to my knees and caught her in a tight hug. Then Dylan and Grace joined in. I held my siblings close, feeling how much I'd missed them, how much I loved them. "I missed you so much," Sophie said into my shoulder. "I missed you too," I whispered back. "All of you." When I finally stood up, my parents were standing there awkwardly. My mother looked uncomfortable. My father's expression was carefully neutral. "Congratulations," my mother said stiffly. "Thank you," I replied, equally formal. There was a long, awkward pause. My siblings looked between us, clearly hoping for some kind of reconciliation. But my father just nodded once and said, "We should go. Kids have bedtime." "Wait," Sophie said, looking panicked. "Can Sarah come over, please?" My mother shook her head. "Not today, Sophie. Sarah has her own celebration plans." "But Sophie now," my father said firmly. I watched them walk away, my siblings looking back at me with sad faces. Part of me wanted to call out, to chase after them, to do anything to make my siblings smile. But I stayed where I was, surrounded by the people who'd actually shown up for me. "You okay?" Maya asked quietly, putting a hand on my shoulder. I nodded, wiping away a few tears. "Yeah, I will be." That evening, my grandparents, Maya, the Richardsons, and a few close friends went out for a celebratory dinner at my favourite restaurant. Over burgers and milkshakes, we toasted to the future, to new beginnings, to resilience. "To Sarah," Grandpa Henry said, raising his glass, "who taught us all what it means to choose yourself without losing yourself." As everyone echoed the toast, I felt something settle inside me. This was my family now, not defined by blood, but by choice, by support, by genuine love. And that was okay, more than okay. It was exactly what I needed. The day after graduation, reality set in. I had 3.5 months until I moved into my dorm at Metropolitan University. 3.5 months to work, save money, and prepare for this huge transition. True to his word, Tom increased my hours at Page Turner Books to $35 per week with a raise to $12 an hour. Between that income and being careful with expenses, I calculated I could save about $3,000 over the summer. Enough for textbooks, supplies, and some cushion for emergencies. The first week after graduation was strange. For the first time in years, I had free time that didn't involve childcare or homework. I could actually do things teenagers were supposed to do. Hang out with friends, go to the movies, sleep in on my days off. Jenna and I spent an entire Saturday just driving around, music blasting, windows down, celebrating our freedom. We stopped at this overlook point outside town and sat on the hood of my car, looking out at the valley below. "Can you believe we actually made it?" Jenna asked. "High school is over. We're adults now." "Technically adults," I corrected with a smile. "I still feel like I'm playing pretend most of the time." "You've been more adult than most actual adults for years," Jenna pointed out. "Seriously, Sarah, you've handled all this insanity with so much grace. I don't know if I could have done it." "You could have," I said. "You do what you have to do to survive. That's all I've been doing." A week into summer, Grandma Susan called with a proposition. "Your grandfather and I were talking. We'd love for you to come spend a few weeks with us before college starts. We could help you prepare, go shopping for your dorm, just spend quality time together." "I'd love that," I said immediately. "I need to work most of the summer, but maybe I could come out for the last 2 weeks of August." "Perfect," Grandma said happily. "We'll make sure you have everything you need before you start school." Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. I worked 5 days a week at the bookstore, which I genuinely enjoyed. The customers were mostly pleasant, my co-workers were fun, and being surrounded by books all day was basically my ideal environment. On my days off, I did volunteer work at the local youth centre, the same one Marcus had told me about. I helped facilitate support groups for teens dealing with family issues, sharing my own story when it felt appropriate. It was healing, in a way, to turn my painful experience into something that could help others. 3 weeks into summer, I got an unexpected message on social media. It was from my cousin Rachel, my dad's niece, who I'd always liked but hadn't been particularly close to. "Hey, Sarah, I heard about everything that happened. I'm so sorry your parents treated you that way. I wanted to reach out because something similar happened to me when I was 19. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." We ended up on the phone for 2 hours that night. Rachel told me how her parents had kicked her out when she'd gotten pregnant at 19. She'd struggled for years, working multiple jobs while raising her daughter alone. But now, at 32, she had a successful career, a happy family, and no regrets about standing up to her parents. "The first few years were hard," she admitted. "I grieved the relationship I thought I should have had with them. But eventually, I realized I'd built a better life for myself than I ever could have had under their control." "Do you talk to them now?" I asked. "Occasionally," Rachel said. "My daughter is 13 now, and she's curious about her grandparents. So we have occasional supervised visits. But I'll never have a close relationship with them, and I've made peace with that." Talking to Rachel helped me envision what my future might look like. Maybe someday my parents would realize what they'd lost and try to make amends. Or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I could build a good life for myself. In early July, something unexpected happened. I was working at the bookstore when a woman came in with 3 kids, and I immediately recognized them as my siblings. My mother was there too, of course, and she froze when she saw me behind the register. Sophie's face lit up, and she started to run toward me before my mother caught her arm. "Mom, please," Sophie begged. "Can I at least say hi?" My mother's face was conflicted, but after a long moment, she nodded. Sophie ran over to the counter and I came around to hug her. "I missed you so much," she said, squeezing me tight. "I missed you too, Soph." Dylan and Grace came over more cautiously, but they hugged me too. We chatted for a few minutes about school being out, their summer activities, the new babysitter, apparently much nicer than the first one. My mother kept her distance, pretending to browse books, but I could feel her watching us. When it was time to go, Sophie didn't want to leave. "Can Sarah come over sometime?" she asked my mother. "Please." My mother looked at me directly for the first time. If she wants to visit, she knows where we live. It wasn't exactly a warm invitation, but it wasn't a rejection either. After they left, I stood behind the counter feeling shaky. Tom noticed and told me to take my break early. Sitting in the back room with a cup of tea, I texted Maya about what happened. "Do you think I should try to visit them?" I asked. "Only if you want to," she responded. "Don't do it out of guilt or obligation. Do it because you genuinely want to spend time with your siblings." I thought about it for the rest of my shift. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. I wanted to see my siblings, but on my terms. So I texted my mother. "I'd like to visit with Dylan, Sophie and Grace on Saturdays. I can come from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm not there to babysit. I'm there to spend time with them as their sister. Let me know if that works." She didn't respond for 2 days, and I'd almost given up hope when she finally replied, "Fine, starting next Saturday." That first Saturday visit was awkward. My parents mostly stayed out of the way, but the tension in the house was palpable. I took my siblings to the park, then to get ice cream, keeping us out of the house as much as possible. As we sat eating our ice cream cones, Dylan asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are you ever coming back home?" "No," I said honestly, "but that doesn't mean I don't love you guys. I'll always be your sister no matter where I live." "But it's not the same," Sophie said quietly. "I miss when you tucked us in at night and helped with homework and—" "I know," I said, pulling her close. "I miss that too. But the way things were before wasn't healthy for me. I was taking care of you guys so much that I couldn't take care of myself." Grace, only 7, didn't really understand the complexity of it all. But Dylan, at 12, was starting to get it. "Mum and Dad worked you too hard," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah," I agreed. "They did. But I don't want you to be angry at them. They're still your parents and they love you. They just made some mistakes with me. These Saturday visits became part of my routine. Some weeks were better than others. Sometimes my parents tried to guilt me into staying longer or helping with chores. I had to be firm about my boundaries, reminding them I was there as a sister, not as help. In late July, Aunt Patricia called with interesting news. Apparently, there had been a big family meeting, one I wasn't invited to, where several relatives had confronted my parents about their treatment of me. "Your Uncle David really laid into them," Aunt Patricia said. "He told them that they'd lost a daughter through their own selfishness, and if they didn't make serious amends, they'd lose relationships with other family members too." "How did they react?" I asked. "Defensively at first," Aunt Patricia admitted, "but I think it got through to them, at least a little. Your mother seemed shaken when she left. I didn't know what to do with this information. Part of me wanted my parents to apologize and acknowledge their mistakes. But another part of me had moved on emotionally, building a life that didn't require their validation." "Do you think they'll ever actually apologize?" I asked. Aunt Patricia was quiet for a moment. "I think they know they messed up, but apologizing would require them to admit they were wrong, and that's very hard for your mother especially. Pride is a powerful thing, Sarah." As August approached, I started getting excited about college. Metropolitan University sent me information about orientation, my dorm assignment, Harrison Hall, room 314, and my roommate, a girl named Emily from a town 3 hours north. I connected with Emily on social media, and we started planning our dorm room setup. She seemed nice, studying biology, hoping to go to medical school, into hiking and photography. We decided to coordinate our colour scheme, blues and greys, and divide up what items to bring. The last 2 weeks of August, as planned, I went to stay with my grandparents. It was the first time I'd been to their house since I was 12, and it felt like stepping into a different world. Peaceful, organised, filled with love. Grandma had prepared the guest room for me with fresh flowers and a welcome basket full of my favourite snacks. They'd cleared space in the garage for my stuff, ready to load up for the drive to Metropolitan University. Those 2 weeks were healing. We went shopping for dorm supplies together. Grandma taught me some of her recipes. Grandpa showed me how to do basic car maintenance. We watched old movies in the evening and talked about everything. My future, their past, the complicated situation with my parents. "Do you think I made the right choice?" I asked one evening as we sat on their back porch watching the sunset. "Leaving like I did?" "Absolutely," Grandpa said without hesitation. "You chose yourself, Sarah. You chose your future. That's never the wrong choice." "But I hurt my siblings. I caused all this family drama." "No," Grandma interrupted firmly. "Your parents caused that drama when they decided to use you as free labor instead of supporting your development. You just refuse to go along with it anymore. That's not causing drama, that's setting boundaries." The day before we were supposed to leave for Metropolitan University, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Hi," I said cautiously. "Sarah?" There was a long pause. The kids wanted to say goodbye before you leave for college." "Oh, okay. Should I come by tomorrow morning?" "That would be good," my mother said. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "We're proud of you, for the scholarship and everything." I was so shocked I almost dropped the phone. "Thank you," I managed to say. After we hung up, I told my grandparents about the call. Grandma smiled knowingly. "Baby steps," she said. "Sometimes that's all you can expect." The next morning, before we loaded up the car for the drive to Metropolitan University, Grandpa drove me to my parents' house. We arrived at 9 a.m. as arranged. My siblings were already outside waiting, and they ran to me as soon as I got out of the car. I spent about an hour with them, taking photos, promising to video chat every week, assuring them I'd be home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My parents stayed on the porch, watching but not approaching. As I was getting ready to leave, my mother finally walked down the driveway. "Sarah," she said, her voice tight, "can we talk for a minute, alone?" I glanced at my grandfather, who nodded encouragingly. My mother and I walked a short distance down the street, out of earshot of everyone else. I'm not good at this, my mother started, staring at the ground. Admitting when I'm wrong. Your father and we didn't handle things well, with you. We relied on you too much, expected too much. I waited, barely breathing. I don't know if I can give you the apology you probably want, she continued. I still think you could have handled things differently, but I do recognize that we put too much on you, and I'm sorry for that part. It wasn't a complete apology. She was still deflecting some of the blame, but it was something. Thank you for saying that, I replied carefully. It means something. I don't want you to go to college with us being enemies, my mother said, finally looking at me. You're still my daughter, even if things are complicated right now. I don't want us to be enemies either, I admitted. But Mum, I can't go back to how things were. I can't be the family's backup parent anymore. I know, she said quietly. We've hired a full-time nanny now. The kids seem to like her. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. I should go, I finally said. Grandpa and Grandma are waiting. Right, of course. My mother hesitated, then awkwardly reached out and hugged me. It was stiff and uncomfortable, but it was an attempt. Good luck at college. Thanks, Mom. I hugged my siblings one more time, reminding them I loved them and would call soon. Then I got back in the car with my grandfather and we drove away. I watched the house disappear in the side mirror, feeling a complex mix of emotions. How do you feel? Grandpa asked. Lighter, I said honestly. Still hurt, still angry about a lot of things, but lighter. The drive to Metropolitan University took 3 hours. My grandparents followed me in their car. I'd be driving my own car on campus, needing it for work and getting around. As we got closer to the city, I felt butterflies intensify in my stomach. This was it, the beginning of my new life. Metropolitan University's campus was even more beautiful than I remembered from my scholarship interview. Old brick buildings, huge trees, students everywhere despite it being move-in day chaos. We found Harrison Hall and I checked in to get my room key. Room 314, 3rd floor. As we carried boxes and bags up the stairs, I was buzzing with excitement and nervousness. Emily, my roommate, was already there with her parents. She was exactly as friendly as she'd seemed online, immediately helping us carry stuff and introducing everyone around. Grandma and Grandpa helped me unpack and set up my side of the room. We assembled the small bookshelf I'd bought, made my bed with the new bedding Grandma had gotten me, arranged my desk supplies. Slowly, the bare dorm room started to feel like my space. When everything was set up, my grandparents took me out to dinner at a nice restaurant near campus. Over pasta and salad, we talked about everything I needed to know: emergency contacts, budget management, study habits, when to come home for breaks. Remember, Grandma said, taking my hand across the table, we're always just a phone call away. If you need anything, money, advice, just someone to talk to, you call us. I will, I promised, feeling tears well up. Thank you both so much for everything. I literally couldn't have done any of this without you. You could have, Grandpa said. You're incredibly resilient, Sarah, but we're glad we could help make it easier. After dinner, we drove back to campus for the official goodbyes. Standing outside Harrison Hall, I hugged them both tightly. I love you guys so much, I said, crying now. We love you too, sweetheart, Grandma said, also crying. Make us proud. I will, I promise. I watched their car drive away, then stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting myself feel everything. The fear, the excitement, the grief for what I'd lost, the hope for what was ahead. Then I took a deep breath and walked back into my dorm. Emily was sitting on her bed, scrolling through her phone. You okay? She asked, noticing my red eyes. Yeah, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm good, just emotional about saying goodbye. Want to go explore campus? She suggested. I heard there's an ice cream place that stays open late. That sounds perfect, I said with a smile. The first week of college was overwhelming in the best possible way. Orientation activities, meeting people, finding classrooms, getting used to the campus layout. Everything was new and exciting. I loved my classes right from the start. Introduction to Psychology, English composition, general biology, college algebra, and a first-year seminar on social justice. The professors were engaged and interesting. The material was challenging but fascinating. My roommate Emily turned out to be wonderful. We had similar schedules, studied together in our room, and quickly became friends. She knew bits and pieces of my story. I'd mentioned having a complicated relationship with my parents, but she didn't pry for details. I also connected with other students in my dorm. There was Marcus, different from high school Marcus but also dealing with family issues, who lived down the hall. And Priya and Jordan, who were dating and always organising group activities. About 2 weeks into the semester, I met with my academic advisor, Professor Williams, to discuss my course plan. When I mentioned wanting to major in psychology with a focus on family systems therapy, she got excited. "We have an incredible family therapy program here," she said, "and there's a research opportunity I think you'd be perfect for. It's studying the long-term effects of parentification on young adults." I almost laughed at how perfectly relevant that was to my own experience. "That sounds really interesting," I said. "The lead researcher, Dr. Martinez, is looking for undergraduate research assistants. It's paid about 15 hours a week. Would you be interested?" I absolutely was interested. A research position would look great on graduate school applications, and the topic was something I cared deeply about. Plus, it paid more than minimum wage. I met with Dr. Martinez the following week, and she offered me the position on the spot. "Your personal experience with this issue, combined with your academic background, makes you an ideal candidate," she explained. "Obviously, we'll need to be mindful of boundaries since you've lived through what we're studying, but your insights could be invaluable." Between my research position, classes, and work-study hours I picked up at the campus library, I had a full schedule. But unlike the overwhelming exhaustion I'd felt taking care of my siblings, this was fulfilling. I was busy because I'd chosen to be, working toward goals I'd set for myself. I video called my siblings every Sunday, as promised. Sometimes my parents hovered in the background, but mostly they gave us space. Dylan was doing better, adjusting to middle school. Sophie was in a school play. Grace was learning to read. I missed them, but I didn't miss the life I'd left behind. In October, about 6 weeks into the semester, something unexpected happened. My mother called me directly, which she'd never done before. "Sarah," she said, her voice shaky, "I need to apologize to you, properly this time." I sat down on my dorm bed, stunned. "Okay." "I've been in therapy," she continued. "Your Aunt Jennifer insisted, and your father and I went together. The therapist, she helped me see how we treated you, how I treated you, and I'm ashamed." I didn't know what to say. "You were a child," my mother continued, and I could hear she was crying. "You were my child, and instead of protecting you and nurturing you, I used you. I convinced myself it was normal, that I was teaching you responsibility, but it wasn't normal. It was wrong, and I'm so sorry." Tears were streaming down my face now. "Thank you," I managed to whisper. "Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she said. "I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I see what I did now, and I'm working on being better. For you, for your siblings, for myself." We talked for over an hour. She told me about therapy, about the wake-up call from family members, about how hard it had been to admit she'd been wrong. I told her about college, about my classes, about the research position. At the end of the call, my mother said, "Your father and I would like to come visit you for Parents' Weekend in November, if you're comfortable with that." I thought about it. "Yes," I said finally, "I'd like that." When I hung up, I sat staring at my phone for a long time. Emily came back from class and found me crying. "Are those happy tears or sad tears?" she asked gently. "Both, I think," I said, just processing a lot. That night, I wrote in my journal, the one Jenna had given me for graduation. I wrote about the call with my mother, about how healing and complicated it felt to receive that apology. I wrote about how far I'd come in just a few months, from a barely adult teenager with nowhere to go to a college student with a full scholarship, a research position, and a hopeful future. Parents' Weekend arrived in mid-November. My parents drove up on Saturday morning, bringing my siblings with them. We met on campus, and it was awkward at first. But as we walked around and I showed them my dorm, my classrooms, the library where I worked, I saw something in my mother's eyes I'd never seen before. Genuine pride. "You've built a good life here," my father said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. We had lunch at the dining hall, and I introduced my parents to Emily and a few other friends. My parents were polite, engaged, asking questions about our majors and interests. They were trying, making an effort to be supportive parents rather than just critical or demanding ones. After lunch, I took my siblings to the campus rec centre while my parents walked around on their own. In the gym, while Sophie and Grace played with a volleyball, Dylan pulled me aside. "Things are better at home now," he said. "Mum and Dad fight less. The nanny is nice, but we still miss you." "I miss you too," I said honestly. "But I'm happy here, Dylan. Really happy." "I know," he said. "I can tell. You look lighter." That observation from my 12-year-old brother made my eyes water. "Yeah," I agreed. "I feel lighter." Before my family left that evening, my mother hugged me. A real hug, not the stiff, obligatory kind. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "So proud." "Thank you, Mom." As I watched their car drive away, I felt something shift inside me. The relationship with my parents would probably never be simple or completely healed. There was too much hurt, too much history. But maybe, with therapy and time and effort on their part, we could build something new, something healthier. It's been a little over a year since my parents kicked me out for getting a job. As I sit here in my dorm room, studying for finals at the end of my freshman year, I can hardly believe how much has changed. I finished my first year of college with a 3.8 GPA. I'm declaring my major officially as psychology next week, with a focus on family systems. The research position with Dr. Martinez has been incredible. I even co-authored a paper that's being submitted to a journal. My relationship with my parents is still complicated, but it's improving. They came to campus 3 more times after Parents' Weekend. We talk on the phone once a week. My mother continues therapy, and sometimes she shares what she's learning with me. My father is slower to open up, but he's trying in his own way. I see my siblings regularly during breaks, and we video chat every Sunday without fail. They're doing well. Sophie made the honor roll. Dylan joined the robotics club. Grace is thriving in 2nd grade. The nanny my parents hired, Maria, is wonderful, kind, patient, professional. Everything I should have been allowed to be, their sister, not their caretaker. Maya is still my person, the one I call when I need advice or just someone to talk to. She's thinking about going back to school herself, inspired by my journey. My grandparents visit every couple months, and I spent a week with them over spring break. I'm working at a local bookstore near campus during the summer, similar to Page Turner Books, but with slightly better pay and more flexible hours. I'm also continuing my research work and taking a summer class to stay on track with my major. Sometimes I still struggle with guilt about my siblings, or anger about what my parents did, or grief about the childhood I lost to parentification. But I'm in therapy now too, working through those complicated feelings with a counselor who specializes in family trauma. Last week, something happened that brought it all full circle. A girl came into the bookstore where I work, looking stressed and exhausted. She couldn't have been more than 17 or 18. We started chatting, and she eventually told me she was the primary caregiver for her 4 younger siblings because her parents worked all the time. "I got accepted to college," she said quietly. "Full scholarship, but I don't see how I can go. My parents need me here to watch the kids." I looked at this girl, seeing myself from a year ago, and I made a decision. "Can I tell you a story?" I asked. And I did. I told her everything. Being used as free childcare, getting kicked out, the scholarship, building a new life. I told her about the guilt and the fear and the struggle, but also about the freedom and the growth and the opportunities that came from choosing herself. "You're not responsible for raising your parents' children," I told her firmly. "You're allowed to want things for yourself. That doesn't make you selfish, it makes you human." She left the bookstore with tears in her eyes, but also with information about resources I'd found, contact information for support organizations, and my phone number if she ever needed to talk. As I watched her go, I realized something important. My story doesn't have a perfect, tied up with a bow ending. My relationship with my parents will probably always be somewhat strained. I'll probably always carry some scars from those years of parentification. My siblings and I will have to work to rebuild our relationships as they get older. But I also survived. More than that, I'm thriving. I'm getting an education, building a career, forming healthy relationships, learning to set boundaries and advocate for myself. The trauma I experienced doesn't define me, even though it shaped me. And maybe, just maybe, by sharing my story, I can help other people who are trapped in similar situations see that there's a way out. That choosing yourself isn't selfish. That you deserve to have dreams and pursue them, regardless of what your family expects from you. So, to anyone watching who's in a similar situation, who's being used as free labor by your family, who's being told that wanting something for yourself makes you selfish, I see you. Your feelings are valid. You deserve better. And it's okay to choose yourself, even when it's hard, even when people make you feel guilty, even when it means disrupting the family system. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your family is to refuse to participate in dysfunction. Sometimes walking away is the only way to find your way back. My name is Sarah Chen. A year ago, my parents kicked me out for getting a job. Today, I'm a college student with a full scholarship, a research position, and a future I'm building on my own terms. This is my story, and it's not over yet.